Hercules Gomez, my friend, calls Jonathan David the best number 9 in Concacaf. What does he need to do for his career to go next level?
After now coaching him and getting to know him more, he's even better than I thought. And I was someone who rated him very highly.
My guest today is an American who's busy writing Canadian history as manager of the Canadian men's national team. It's a remarkable place to be at a remarkable time. We are just 450 days away from a World Cup, which will be played across Canada, the United States and Mexico. And in this moment, it is magical to welcome, ahead of the Nations League quest that lies ahead, a truth teller, a straight shooter, a master motivator, a man who's always walked his own path, like a footballing Kwai Chang Kane. It's the pride of Racine, Wisconsin. It's my friend, it's Mr. Jesse Marsch.
Next time I get to do an intro for you. All right, I think that's the only stipulation for me coming on the show is that I get to give you a proper introduction.
I'm the dullest man in America, is the honest
What about,
truth.
have you ever been to Racine, Wisconsin? You always say this, Racine, Wisconsin. Have you ever been?
I have. I've been there once.
Oh, really?
Okay. And I will say, I went to a supper club, one of those Wisconsin supper clubs, and the salad was life-changing. Yes.
Okay, and prime
what else
rib.
could it be, Jesse?
And then we have also something called kringle, which is like a circular pastry, like a sweet Danish kind of pastry. So next time...
Now you're talking my language.
Maybe you and I meet in Racine with a nice cup of coffee and some kringle.
God, let's kringle. Life is better with kringle. But we are meeting today, kringle in hand, 450 days until the World Cup. Does that feel close to you, Jesse, or does it feel far away?
I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest. Like, there's time, but there has to be urgency. How I've calculated is basically 7 windows together. And so we have to make sure that we maximize our time together and the potential that we're trying to build here, achieve. So there's, I think we have real urgency to the environment every time we get together.
7 windows, it's like 4 weddings and a funeral. How do you think about the period between now and then in terms of the task, the time? Do you break it into phases like Nations League, Gold Cup, or achievements that you need to unlock, talent ID, tactics, squad building, recruitment between now and then?
This is my first time being a national team coach. When I first took the job, that stretch between June 1st and December 1st, we had 13 matches. So we were really active, and now you're putting a lot into the development of the team. And then, since then, that December 1st to June 1st, you have 2 matches in 1 week with your team. So there has to be more put into developing other things that are important for the team, but also for the sport and the country. And so that's what I've invested a lot in. I've gone on tours of coaching clinics across the country. I've gone to different soccer summits. I've done a lot of fundraising so that we can build a more robust youth national team system for both the men and women, boys and girls. Invested in people in the sport and in every way tried to learn and share my experiences about what it means to be the Canadian national team coach. And it's been a very rewarding experience.
We are here on Nations League Eve. Where does it fit in? What's the mission here? Your purpose, other than to win the damn thing?
We've had a very linear experience together as a team. I think, we've had losses and we've had disappointments, but we've built, I think, in a pretty uniform way and continued to grow and develop more and more. So now I think a moment like this is about making sure that we understand that we're going to be challenged, that, we're playing for a trophy, that the nation hasn't won a trophy in 25 years. And, and look, for even more than me setting the tone that we want to win this is the players have indicated to me very clearly that their expectation is to push to win it. And so now it's just in the moment trying to continue to push what I think are the standards and demands for what is going to make us better, and then give these players the opportunity to show what they are, who they are, how much they've learned, how much they've grown, and put it all to the test in 2 really big games.
They are big games, or in context big games, because in the United States, there's a lot of concern our boys won't be battle-hardened by the time the World Cup comes around. There's so few real live games, if you will. We're not qualifying. The automatic qualification for the World Cup by virtue of being hosts it's almost a double-edged sword. After the Gold Cup, we just have this steady diet of friendlies. How do you think about that? How you can sharpen the test to make sure that steel sharpens steel?
We are going to, at the end of the year, as the Canadian Soccer Association and the men's national team, have our best competition that we will have ever had over a 1-year period in the history of the program. Like we're scheduling some really good opponents. But like you said, they're not all competitive environments. Now, I learned as a national team coach that it's not like you approach any game like, oh, it's a friendly, who cares? Right? But there's different weights for different games. And that's what I think makes the moment that we're in right now really important for us. Is even, when I was in the media last year about this time, I said that Nations League in some ways was a manufactured tournament, right? And around the world to try to create more energy around the friendlies and less qualifiers and different things at different places. But where we are being, all three of U.S., Mexico, and Canada, and knowing that we're already qualified and that there aren't any heavily weighted games, right, that mean something, that carry a trophy with them, this winds up being really important for us specifically. I can't speak for U.S. and Mexico, but for us, we take this moment in time very seriously, and we think it'll be an important time for us to express who we think we are at the time and play the way we want to play, but then also test our mettle to see in some heated matches and some important matches with a weighted political environment to see how good can we be.
So you do now, in the media, you're like, manufactured tournament, now you're the manager. You're like, how the turntables. You see the importance.
Yeah, that's why I had to get a job again, Roger, because being in the media wasn't really...
I've got to be honest,
a real job. Sorry, Roger, a real job.
Well, believe me, believe me. I've got to say, it has been a ray of sunshine watching you do this real job. You're thriving with this dizzyingly talented collective up north. Finished 4th in the Copa America last summer, gone unbeaten since. Including, and this one hurt, I'm not going to lie, first win on American soil in 67 years, that 2-1 friendly win in Kansas City, Missouri in September, after which you said it made you proud to be the Canadian coach. And you've come back across the 49th parallel for Nations League action. Mexico awaits in the semi-final, SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. I will be there Thursday night. I want to talk about Mexico, but do you actually show your players the city when you travel? Do you weave in a little bit of some like in and out burger time, or is it all just business?
In this current moment, we don't really have a lot of time, right? Normally we'd have a Friday or a Saturday match, and so it would give us a little bit more time to kind of get the rhythm going of things. But given the gravity of the matches and the time frame, we don't really have a whole lot of time. Now, the one thing that we've done is arranged to train at the Coliseum intentionally, because it's an important place for Canada soccer. That's the last time that Canada has hosted a trophy, in 2000 Gold Cup final. So, to taste a little bit of the history at a place like the Coliseum and what it's meant for Canada soccer, I think is still important for our guys. In this moment, though, we're laser focused in, and most of the guys arrived on Sunday. A few more came in on Monday. We had our first real meeting as a group today. Then we had a really good training session. A lot of the things that I do when they come in are really tried, because we really play with a lot of intensity and pace, and really try to ramp up on that first training session, like the idea of what we think our football is. And then now we'll make sure that we kind of have a decompress into what our preparation is for the match, and make sure that we're ready to go on Thursday.
God, the Coliseum, that is epic. I can't imagine how that soaks through for those gents, just being around that energy, that history. Even for me as a fan, is so profoundly moving. But Mexico awaits. So long the regional powerhouse, really an opportunity for you to reinforce the sense that Canada can duke it out and fears nobody in the region. You drew 0-0 with Mexico last September, really feisty game, almost an unfriendly Jesse, dominated by 43 fouls, 7 yellows. Mexican squad's been strengthened by the return of Fulham finisher, the quite excellent Raul Jimenez. West Ham warrior Edson Alvarez is on the roster too. What did you learn from that last game, and what are you expecting to see go differently in this clash?
Mexico was combative. I think they wanted to make sure that they made things difficult for us, that we weren't able to use our pace to get out into open spaces and stretch the game. They played relatively safe with the ball, which is unusual for a Mexican team that usually likes to have possession and dictate the way the game is played with the ball. But I think a lot of it was that they respected our pressing and they respected our ability to really use pace and be dynamic and play with intensity. And so I think it'll be similar. We spent 3 weeks ago, we were together for the press conference with Javier Aguirre and Thomas Christensen. The three of us, I think, had a really nice time together and got to know each other. And I think we all have respect for each other as coaches and certainly what each of our teams mean. And then obviously the U.S. still is the only winners and 3-time winners of this tournament, mean that we're all chasing them. But I think that for me, I can just say that I think that there's real mutual respect between Javier and I, and also for each other's teams. And, I have a little bit of a unique perspective on Mexican football because I played for Chivas USA. I got to know a lot of great icons of Mexican football and was very close to it for many years. And guys like Jorge Campos, Claudio Suarez, Ramon Ramirez, Paco Palencia, great guys, great players, great people. So my level of respect for Mexican football and for what it's meant over the years is really high. And I think Javier's done an amazing job of really galvanizing his group back together when it's not been the best past 3-4 years. So I think we're going to get the best version of them, and it's going to be a very difficult, combative match.
You mentioned 4 teams are left in the tournament. One is the United States. Can I ask you, I'm sure you've looked at film. How would you describe the difference between Mauricio Pochettino's US men's national team and Greg Berhalter's?
There's some subtle differences in the way that they try to use possession and in the way they try to press. But I think that there's some congruencies too. And in that sense, I think that Pochettino is a good successor of the program and taking it forward in the next way. He clearly has an idea of how he likes to build with 3 and how he uses his wide players and some of his dynamic players up front. And then, I think he's trying to make the team a little bit more intensive in terms of how they press. And clearly he has some great pieces to work with and some really high quality players playing at a high level. So, yeah, I think he's a great selection. I think he's a good person. I think he's a really good coach. And so, at some point, it'd be a pleasure to play against this team. So we'll see. Maybe it's this weekend, and if not, then maybe it'll be in Gold Cup.
God, Concacaf is amazing. We are living in incredible days. You got Steve McLaren with Jamaica too. It's just it is a managerial Star Wars cantina of wonder. We are living in a brave new world. By the way, I want to talk about the Canadian team. Watching Canadians score in the Champions League knockout rounds on the regs is just a thing of beauty. Last week, back-to-back days, Alfonso Davies, that audacious bottle rocket of a Bayern Munich left-back, scored the 5th goal to nail shut the tie against Bayer Leverkusen. The very next day, Jonathan David opened the scoring for Lille against Borussia Dortmund. He nutmegged the keeper to boot. You said recently, Jesse, this is the strongest the Canadian men's national team has ever looked. How do you understand it? Is it just coincidence? Is it transcendent players developing at the same time? Or is something deepened and bettered the national team roster strategically?
As much as I said, I've been trying to invest in the sport in the country, there's clearly a lot of good things that have been done. And I've said that a lot because if you just look at our player pool, you would say that it's at a peak of development of the sport in the country. What's really amazing about most of these guys is they're first and second generation. So their families come from other nations, sometimes the Caribbean, places like Jamaica, sometimes Central and South America, some European, some African. So, kind of built into their cultures or at least their heritage is this idea of what the sport is. And it's what's kind of really cool about a lot of the players is that they call Canada a mosaic and U.S. a melting pot. And what they mean by mosaic is that the heritage of the communities remains strong. Like, if you're from West Africa, your family's still making West African food in the house. You're still speaking French in the house. There's a lot of traditional things that are still happening around your family and around your neighborhood that are reminiscent of what it's like in the country or the heritage that you came from. And what that has meant for a lot of our players is that characteristic or that other kind of feeling of what their culture is remains in the kinds of football players we produce. The best one that I use is Nico Segur. Like, Nico grew up outside of Vancouver. He's from a Croatian family, and he's just got that Croatian kind of feel for how the game works and being clever. And like, when you think he's looking for one thing, he's seeing something else. But all of our players are kind of built with this identity of what their heritage is into their football, right? And so it's been fun to see them recognize this and appreciate all of their differences and have their differences make them stronger and have that appreciation of each other be also very Canadian and the pride that they have for playing for the Canadian national team.
I was trying to think what I'd bring to the Canadian national team, being a Liverpudlian, which means I'd just be able to kick people. I could give you a good... Give me a good 5 minutes. By the way, you'd like that. You would like that.
Yeah, I would. It would be you and I going against each other, I think.
We're going to talk about that in 1 minute. But we're going to talk about Alfonso Davies, now 24. It's beautiful to see him back to his best, recovered from a couple of cruel injuries, charging up and down that flank transcendently. He recently signed a new contract at Bayern Munich, which could keep him there until 2030. Your captain, the most prominently renowned player on that team. When you look at his play, what have you asked him to improve on in the next year ahead of the 2026 World Cup, on or off the field?
Having Vincent Kompany come into Bayern Munich has meant that Fonzie has become one of the most important players in that team. And maybe in the past where he was just the young, fast player that played on the left, I think now he's transformed himself into a key element. And I think that now when you look at him and Musiala, that you're looking at two of them, like the foundation of where the club is going to be going in the future. And I think that's a great proposition for Alfonso. And I think it's also a great proposition for the national team, because really, as much as Alfonso has some things that I think he can still be more aggressive, I think he can still sprint more in matches, I think he can still be even a better defender and even continue to grow in terms of his production in the final third. I've asked him to be our best defensive player and our best attacking player at the same time. I also think that the progression for him is just to mature into being more of a leader and into more of a player and a person that is essential to any team that he's a part of. I think he's growing more and more into the exact kind of captain that we all know he can become. He has great support from a lot of his teammates, and I think everybody it's not just captaincy is never just a one-man job, but I think the character of this team and the character and maturity of Alfonso Davies has now converged together to mean that we're really benefiting from so many different things of who Alfonso's becoming.
Another remarkable player, and this is one of the stories that you're talking about, just that mix of backgrounds. Brooklyn-born, Haitian descendant, Ottawa raised, Canadian all-action forward Jonathan David decided not to sign a new contract with Lille. His contract expires this summer. A huge number of names linked to him, Barcelona, Liverpool amongst them. 25-year-old recently passed 100 goals for the French side, scored 9 in this season's Champions League, which is incredible for someone whose career began with Ottawa Gloucester SC. Hercules Gomez, my friend, calls Jonathan David the best number 9 in Concacaf. What does he need to do for his career to go next level?
I've had different clubs call me about Jonathan, right? And the thing that I said is I even tried getting Jonathan at Leeds, okay? And I always liked him as a player and thought very highly of him. But after now coaching him and getting to know him more and seeing how intelligent he is and how he's able to now insert himself in matches and understand what the opponent is trying to achieve and how to manipulate who he is and how to be effective in run of play, in pressing, and certainly in goal scoring situations, he's even better than I thought. And I was someone who rated him very highly. And so that's kind of what I've tried to translate to people in the football world that have asked me about him. He doesn't really have any weaknesses, right? He's athletic, he's intelligent, he's good in the air, he's good with both feet, he's, can play deeper. He can play like a 9.5, he can play a 9, he can even play wide. He's just so smart in the game, and he's built with so many tools, and he's got such a cleverness around the goal that very few players in the world have his combination of talents and intelligence. And I really hope to see him get landed in a place where he can continue to show the world how good he is.
You've been in charge of Canada for a lucky 13 games so far. You scored 12 goals. And when you came on the show last time, September, I think you got off saying, I'll never do that show again. But before saying that, you mentioned you'd most like to add the quality of scoring. I mean, these gents clearly do know how to score the goals, even against some of the better teams in Europe with their club teams. What's the next stage of development for you, for Marsch Ball? How do you get this team scoring in multiples?
Yeah, I think that's it. It's just continuing to iron out the relationships that they have on the pitch and understanding around the goal what kinds of concepts and strategies and tactics we have in terms of how to collectively create chances. But in the end too, there's a combination of tactical systems and understanding and the relationships of what happens in the final third. And then there's also the freedom to let your players do what they do best, right? And so in the end, what I try to do is I try to create a structure around the team and a demand for how to continue to push the level and pace at which we can play. And then through the collective understanding of what the strategies, concepts, principles, and tactics are, to give the players freedom to go out and play. And one of the things about being a good counter-pressing team and being a good pressing team and being collectively always kind of connected in different moments is that they have freedom to make mistakes, right? And thus they have freedom to try things, right? And still in the modern game, as much as tactics are such a big part of developing what a team is, I think you also have to allow for creativity, for freedom, to access the true talents and abilities of your best players and let them be who they are. So I'm always trying to drive that balance or get that balance right between how much I really want the collective to understand in certain scenarios around the goal, what are some of the strategies and connections they can have, but then to have them be aggressive and go after the game and play with confidence.
There's different ways this team can keep improving, and one, the most transformational in our region is recruiting dual nationals. It is the difference maker. It's become part of your job over the past 10 months. You've essentially become both ambassador and salesman. You've targeted several footballers who have Canadian ties. For this roster, you added Oakville, Ontario-born Bournemouth striker Daniel Jefferson, a gent who won the Under-19 Euros with England. He's eligible for Jamaica. And also Nigerian-Canadian Promise David of Union Saint-Gilloise in Belgium to complete an all-David attack, possibly tactically. That would be a delight. You've been talked about how you recruited them. You got Alfonso Davies and Jonathan David to record messages. You edited together a video showing how Jefferson's attributes would fit perfectly within your system, the transition and pressing game. But best of all, you gifted him a one-off pair of Canada-themed Air Jordans, which I just love. What does the courting process look like for you? What do you say? How do you break down trying to entice a player to join Canada in the here and now?
It's not like I just pursue every single dual national that we can find. Like, it's still about thinking about what our needs are, what we're trying to create as a team, and who I think could fit into that, both from a personality and character perspective, and then from an identity of football and style of play perspective. In the end, it's just, now I'm part of a project that I really believe in, right? I love being the Canadian national team coach. I'm really enjoying the process of what we're developing here, both as a men's national team and as a CSA. And so, when we identify the exact players that we think can fit into our system, it's just trying to express to them, what a wonderful movement that's being created in the country and in the sport. And typically, I think the people that I've met with, they can see that I'm genuine and that I'm excited about it. And a lot of them, if they didn't grow up in Canada, they at least spent some time there and they know some of the players on the team. And through that, I think they know there's a true genuineness and a realness to what's being created here. So, and look, we've done pretty well lately too, right? That's I think the best thing to recruit is success, and so they can see the team's getting better. They can see there's really high quality players on the team. They can see that as the team has done well in Copa America and other things, that it's benefited a lot of the individuals inside the team in terms of transfer to bigger clubs and bigger contracts and more development. And I'm ready to facilitate all of those things, and I'm the vessel to try to get it done. But the program right now, I think, is really selling itself.
Your style of football you want, we've talked about how you want a bit more grit in the Canadian play. Alistair Johnston, that quite lovable combo of heart and lungs of a right back for Celtic, was asked to describe your style, and he quite beautifully said, the style Jesse wants is rock and roll, Red Bull drinking, here we go on the front foot, punch you in the mouth, there's not going to be any pleasantries. We know of Canada as a nation known for being unerringly polite. I mean, it is fascinating. You came on in September, you said you'd like your players to be okay being less likeable. A bit more like you were, you said. 69 yellows, 2 reds, 1 swift kick to David Beckham's down belows, countless fist fights in a 14-year MLS career.
Only 69 yellows?
Oh, I thought you were saying just 1 swift kick to David's down belows. God bless. No, there were 2. There's 1 no on those. You told Jack Harrison at Leeds, you said it's okay to be a good young man and a son of a on the pitch. How do you coach that, Jesse? How do you almost train the politeness out of a nation?
Look, I don't want to change their Canadianness, that's for sure. The character of the group is incredibly strong. But I think creating a competitive edge, right, that leads to more self-belief. Like, you know, that was, I think, a big part of the initial part of the project was, you know, giving them a platform to understand how to play together and to access some more of their athletic and speed and some of their really dynamic qualities. And then within that, really building the self-belief of who they are and who they can become. And then the demand of what that means in their personal life and in their professional life every day. Nutrition, gym work, fitness, training intensity, playing intensity, all of it, right? And so from that, yeah, I mean, that mentality to be your best, I think is, I've tried to raise the standards and demands. And by the way, I think they love it. I think they love it. I think they see the benefits of what we're trying to do as a team, but as individuals. And I think they just want to try to commit to it at the highest level that they can.
I mean, you said recently they embody togetherness, this team, and selflessness, that they have a swagger. Is there a Canadianness of this team that comes through as you see it?
I've been really lucky to coach some really good teams, some really fun teams, some really unified teams. But I really think this is the first team I've ever coached with no egos. The guys show up every time. They work their asses off every day that we train. Their concentration to try to represent the nation and the national team at the highest level, and their excitement to try to achieve their potential is different. It's different than anything I've experienced. So, you know, from that perspective, I've been very rewarded by the experience, and it's given us a chance to build a foundation, but there's so much more to be done. And this isn't the end of the road, right? There's a lot more to be done to really achieve the potential of who I think we can be.
You've lived a journey in life. Your family has lived in Turin. I think you're building a home in Mexico. You've managed teams in Montreal, New Jersey, Salzburg, Leipzig, Yorkshire. And each stop's changed, allowed you to develop your game. Also, you as a person, those layers have affected you. How's the Canadianness come over Jesse Marsch? How's it changed you as a person?
I told them at the end of Copa America that as much as I've been demanding things from them, that they've been teaching me. I've been learning a lot, and they've taught me a lot as well. And so, you know, and a lot of it is about this idea of true selflessness, right? True commitment to something bigger than yourself. And it's something that I've always taken pride on as one of the things that are the cornerstones of my personality. But they've, I think, kind of re-established at a higher level what that means. And it's humbling. It's humbling to be around them. because they're so committed to each other and so committed to this national team. So, so much of what I'm trying to do is just make sure that my end of the responsibility of providing them with the opportunity to show everybody how great they are is that I work towards that and make sure that I don't let them down.
I've got to say, I do get a kick out of watching you have such a blast up there in Canada. I don't know if an American's had such a good time in Canada since Vince Carter, to be candid, and I don't like to be hyperbolic. You said something beautiful recently. You said in Canada, you found a place that embodies, quote, the ideals and morals of what not just football and a team is, but what life is. And that's integrity, respect, and the belief that good people can do great things together. I'd love you to talk about that. Something that is about life, but clearly trickles down to the football team culture as you define it. Because I do believe if you have that in football, everything's possible.
I guess the best way to understand it is the higher that I went in football, right? The more that everyone wanted to take credit for the success and that people wanted to blame others for the failures. And of course, who does that fall on the shoulders of more than anyone? The coach, right? And so then the coach is the first one to go. And so when I was in the Premier League, I think it was something like 15 coaches that were fired that year in the Premier League, which is to me utterly absurd. In the end, I took my time because I wanted to find something that was more than just wins and losses, right? That represented more of what I think life is about and what football is about. And my goodness, I'm so thankful to be here at this moment in time with these people in this country, and a time leading into a home World Cup where I think we can really build something special, and we have a player pool that can achieve something special. So
just don't taunt the Croatians, Jesse.
You never know reasons why things happen or how things come together. Again, I've been very lucky to be at some great places and work with great players and great coaches and be a part of great teams. But at this moment in time, I don't think I could have found a better situation than being here right now.
You are the Canadian national team coach. You're a proud American. You're a former US international, US assistant coach. When you came on this show last, you joked about Wisconsin becoming the 17th Canadian province. But international sports is always a reflection. It's a mirror to the geopolitical realities that surround them. We saw this in the Four Nations face-off. I mean, you hinted this a little bit earlier. Football in Concacaf has always been spicy. But this Nations League and then the Gold Cup, can we expect this one to look like the last wing in Hot Ones?
Let's look at it just from a football perspective first. I think that, like you mentioned, even with Steve McLaren, I think that the pool of coaches currently coaching national teams in CONCACAF at the highest levels right now, and if you put Jamaica maybe fifth, that the five coaches coaching the five best nations are probably better than they've ever been and the experiences that they have, right? Then if you take the quality of the teams, right, I think is maybe the best and most competitive it's ever been. So I think it means that the respect and the opportunity to earn respect in the region is tougher and more meaningful than maybe ever before, all right? And then, of course, the climate, the political climate, right? I don't know how to describe it, and I don't care to go into it any more than I already have. But obviously, I watched the Four Nations hockey, and I saw like when the U.S. played Canada in the first match, and in the first actions there were 3 fistfights right away. Now we can't do that in our sport, and I don't think we will. Okay,
you've tried,
but we do know that the competitive climate has also changed. That being said, I really think that the respect we have for Mexico, I can just speak about our team. The respect we have for Mexico, our next opponent, is very high. The respect we have for Panama and the matches that we've had for Panama, my respect for what Thomas Christensen has done is very high. And our respect for the U.S. national team and how they've driven the standard of what football is in CONCACAF at this moment is also, and Pochettino, and by the way, Javier Aguirre and what he means to the Mexican national team, all of these things right now, I can just say that our respect is incredibly high. We want to make this about the games. We want to make this about the competitive will, and we want to make this about our journey to be the best that we can be.
Amen. On that note, and may that spirit carry through. Jesse, I've got to say, it is a delight to catch up with you, to listen to you, to your family, to the Canadian nation, to more.
Thanks, Roger. Good to see you, brother.
Big love. Courage.